Picture this scenario, because I bet you've had this exact conversation in the last 6 months. You're at a family dinner. Your cousin, the one who bought a house back in 2015, casually mentions that his mortgage payment is $1,400 a month. You almost choke on your food. You're paying $2,600 for a 2-bedroom apartment that's smaller than his garage. Same city, same neighbourhood. He locked in his rate almost a decade ago. You're paying market price every single month. And here's what really stings. Back when he bought that house, you thought he was being reckless. The prices were high. The timing seemed wrong. You told yourself you'd wait for the market to cool down. You'd rent for a few more years, invest the difference, and buy when it made more sense. That was the smart move, right? Fast forward to today. The market didn't cool down. It caught fire. And now you're watching your cousin build equity, while you're building your landlord's retirement fund. If you've ever looked at your rent check and thought, I make too much money to feel this stuck, this video is going to explain exactly why you're trapped and what to do about it. My name is The Wealth Mechanic, and I spend way too much time thinking about the hidden math that keeps smart people poor. If you're someone who's done the spreadsheets, read the articles, and still can't figure out why renting feels like drowning, hit that subscribe button. Because today, we're going to destroy one of the biggest myths in personal finance. The idea that renting is smarter than buying. Here's the thing. For the last decade, a certain corner of the internet has been screaming that buying a house is a trap. They show you spreadsheets. They calculate opportunity cost. They tell you to rent cheap, invest the difference, and you'll come out ahead. And mathematically, in a vacuum, they're not wrong. But here's what those spreadsheets never calculate. Inflation. Not the 2 or 3% annual inflation that shows up in economics textbooks. I'm talking about the real, brutal, compounding inflation that has been eating renters alive for the last 20 years, while homeowners with fixed-rate mortgages have been laughing all the way to the bank. Let me show you the math they don't want you to see. In 2005, the average rent in America was about $700 a month. Today, over $1,700. That's a 140% increase. If you've been renting this whole time, you've been riding an escalator that only goes up. Now let's look at someone who bought a house in 2005 with a 30-year fixed mortgage at $1,200 a month. What's their payment today? Still $1,200. The same number. Every single month for 20 years. Let me put this in perspective. If you rented from 2005 to today, and your rent increased at the national average, you've paid roughly $340,000 in rent over those 20 years. The person with the mortgage, they've paid about $288,000, and they own an asset that's now worth double what they paid for it. The renter is $340,000 poorer. The owner is sitting on hundreds of thousands in equity. Same 20 years, completely different outcomes. This is not about being good or bad with money. This is about understanding a game that nobody explains to you. You see, the 30-year fixed-rate mortgage is one of the most powerful financial instruments in the world. And here's the crazy part. It basically only exists in America. In most countries, mortgage rates adjust every few years. Your payment can double overnight if interest rates spike. But in the US, you can lock in a rate for 30 years. The bank can't change it. The government can't change it. It's frozen in time. And here's where the magic happens. When you lock in a mortgage, you're not just locking in a payment. You're locking in the value of that payment in today's dollars. But inflation doesn't stop. The dollar keeps getting weaker, which means every year that passes, your fixed payment becomes worth less in real terms. Let me make this concrete. In 2005, $1,200 a month was a significant chunk of the median household income. Today, after 20 years of inflation, that same $1,200 represents maybe 60% of what it used to in purchasing power. You're paying the same nominal amount, but in real terms, you're paying with cheaper and cheaper dollars. Meanwhile, the renter's payment adjusts to current dollars every single year. They're always paying full price. They're always on the wrong side of inflation. This is the inflation trick. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The homeowner is essentially paying off their house with money that becomes less valuable over time. The renter is paying market rate with money that's worth exactly what it's worth today. Now, I know what you're thinking. Okay, but what about all the costs of owning? Property taxes, maintenance, insurance, that stuff adds up. You're right, it does add up. Let me tell you a personal story. We bought our house in November 2005. Looking back, it felt like the worst possible timing. Prices were high. Everyone was calling it a bubble. 2 years later, the market crashed, and we watched our equity evaporate. For the first several years, it felt like we were losing. The maintenance costs were brutal. When you added up property taxes, repairs, and insurance, we were paying more than what rent would have been. But here's what we didn't account for. We bought in a walkable neighbourhood with good schools. We could walk to the park, to the grocery store, to our kids' school. That wasn't just lifestyle, that was strategic. The years passed. Rents in our area started climbing. 5% a year, then 8%, then 10% during the pandemic. Our neighbours who rented, they got hit with increases every single lease renewal. Our mortgage payment? Still the same number it was in 2005. Today, the rent for a comparable house in our neighbourhood is almost 3 times what our mortgage costs. We're paying 1970s prices in a 2025 economy. And the house? It's worth more than double what we paid. The spreadsheet said we were making a mistake. The spreadsheet was wrong. But here's the part that really gets me. If the math is so clear, why do smart people keep choosing to rent? This is where it gets psychological. Your brain is running on hardware that was designed for a completely different world. It's optimized for short-term survival, not 30-year financial planning. And there are 3 specific bugs in your mental software that make you terrible at this decision. The first bug is called present bias. Your brain massively overweights what's happening right now compared to what will happen in the future. When you look at a $2,000 mortgage payment versus an $1,800 rent payment, your brain screams, "Rent is cheaper." It cannot process that in 10 years that rent will be $2,800 while the mortgage will still be $2,000. The second bug is hyperbolic discounting. You've probably heard the advice, rent cheap, invest the difference. It sounds brilliant, but your brain can't actually compute what invest the difference means over 20 years, with compounding inflation eating your rent increases. The math is too abstract. The future is too foggy. The third bug is loss aversion. You're more afraid of losing money than you are excited about gaining it. Buying a house feels risky. What if it loses value? What if I can't sell it? What if the roof caves in? Renting feels safe. No commitment, no risk. But here's the truth. Renting isn't low risk. Renting is guaranteed loss. You are 100% certain to never see that money again. You're paying a premium to avoid a risk that, historically, almost never materializes for people who hold property long term. Your brain sees the mortgage as a chain, but mathematically, it's an anchor. It holds your housing costs in place while the world inflates around you. Think about your coworker, the one who makes the same money you do, same age, maybe even went to the same school, but he bought a small house 6 years ago. You thought he was settling. He couldn't afford the nice apartment downtown like you could. Today, his mortgage payment is half your rent. He's putting money into retirement accounts. He's taking vacations. He bought a new car. And you're sitting there wondering where all your money goes. He didn't get a raise you didn't get. He just made one decision 6 years ago that locked in his biggest expense while yours kept climbing. So what do you do about this? Step 1. Stop trying to time the market. Everyone who has ever said, "I'll wait for prices to drop," has lost this bet for the last 50 years. Yes, there are corrections. Yes, 2008 happened. But people who bought at the peak of 2006 and held on, they're up 70% today. The perfect time to buy was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Step 2. Calculate the 15-year comparison, not the monthly comparison. Don't compare today's mortgage to today's rent. Compare today's mortgage to rent 15 years from now. If rents continue growing at historical averages, that $2,000 apartment will cost $4,000 in 15 years. Your mortgage will still be $2,400. Run that math before you make a decision. Step 3. Buy for stability, not for speculation. Don't buy the biggest house you can afford. Buy in a location where you want to live for at least 7 to 10 years. Good schools, walkable, safe. The house isn't just an investment. It's where your life happens. And the hidden return, the one spreadsheets don't calculate, is the peace of knowing your housing cost is locked in forever. Look, I'm not saying buying is right for everyone. If you're moving in 2 years, rent. If you have unstable income, rent. If you're in a city where prices are genuinely insane relative to rents, maybe rent. But if you've been telling yourself that renting is the smart financial move because some guy on YouTube showed you a spreadsheet, you need to understand what that spreadsheet left out. It left out inflation. It left out the 30-year fixed mortgage. It left out the psychological freedom of knowing your biggest expense is frozen in time. Your landlord has a mortgage, a fixed rate mortgage, and every year they raise your rent to cover inflation while their costs stay flat. You're paying their inflation hedge. You're funding their retirement. The question is, when are you going to start funding your own? If you've been on the fence about buying, if you've been waiting for the right time, and this video made you see the math differently, you're in the right place. This channel is about seeing the game as it actually is, not as they taught you. Subscribe and let's keep opening hoods together.